Hi there, Prairie Plant Girl here. Today I'm out in the garden and I have a couple of jobs that I want to get done. The main job that I want to do today is to get some of this rhubarb behind me. It's huge, cut, harvested, and into the kitchen because I want to try a new recipe I'm excited about. It's rhubarb barbecue sauce. So I've never tried this recipe before and I just came across it. So I'll put a link down below or put the recipe down below so you can try it as well if you want to, and I'll give you a little bit of a run through of what's in it when I get the rhubarb harvested and let you know what I think of it in the end. The first thing I want to get done though is I just did a video with planting out my peppers, and I put some zinnias between my rows of peppers, and several people suggested that that would be a great place for beets, and I couldn't agree more. And I actually missed beets on my planting list this year, so I think I'm going to pop some beets in between the rows of the peppers there. They'll be just fine in there with the zinnias. Still have lots of room to grow. They're an early crop and they'll do well. So they only take just under 2 months to get growing and harvested, so I'm excited to give that a try. The beets I'll be growing are Boulder, which is a yellow beet, and Merlin, which is a red beet. So both nice size ball bean beets, and I'm gonna pop a row of each down in this this bed right here. And I'll also take this netting. If you watched that pepper video, you know I put some netting on because it was really windy, it's gonna be very hot, and the peppers weren't quite properly hardened off yet. So I just wanted to give them a little extra protection on that west side over. So I'll pop the netting off. You'll get to see what the peppers are looking like, and we'll get some beets planted. So let's get started in the garden today. So we'll pop this netting off of this couple of rows of peppers, or this row, I guess, of peppers here. These peppers are looking great. I'm very happy with them. And they're even starting to push a few flowers, so I want to make sure I get the netting off so the pollinators can get to them. But now I also have room to work to get some of those beets planted. Beets are very easy to plant. I'm just going to start with the Merlin beets first, and I just made some little tags. And then I have a big tag here, so this tells me the variety, this tells me it's a row of beets. I should be able to tell that when the leaves start coming up out of the ground, but it doesn't hurt just to have that extra reminder in there. And I'll just go right, the zinnias are pretty much between two lines of drip, so I'll just go right, zip them right between the on the other side of the drip, on the other side of the zinnias there. And I'm just gonna kind of make a shallow little furrow. They want to be about 1/2 to 1 inch deep, and you can space them like 4 to 8 inches apart, depending on how big you like your beets and how often you want to harvest them. Beet seeds are kind of funky looking things, kind of knobbly, weird looking, and I find often there's several seeds actually in each one of these little pods here. So I'm just going to take a seed, pop it in the furrow, and just spread them out, like I said, about every 6 to 8 inches. You could put a couple at a time if you're worried about germination. I'm just going 1 or 2 if 2 fall, 1 for the most part. And I think that's a pretty good size little row of beets. It's really mostly just me that eats them, though I think it's the red color that kind of turns my family off, so that's why I like to grow the yellow ones as well. Sometimes they're a better sell at my kitchen table. So just gently covered it over. I'm going to pop over to the other side, try and reach around those trellises, and we'll get the Boulder beets in. Beets are fine to grow in a part sun kind of location too, so if you don't have a good sunny spot, or like I said, you want to grow them in between some other crops, that will work well. And they're kind of a spring plant, so I mean, we get pretty hot here in the summer, but not like those of you in the southern states. So I can usually still get away with growing beets in the summer here, but they do appreciate a little bit more shade as the weather gets hotter. And it's going to be hot this week, but it's going to be unusually hot, so should get time still to get these beets growing. Like I said, they don't need a lot of time, so by the time we're at the end of July and into that August really, really hot time, then most of them should be harvested or mature anyways and just being stored in the ground. Beets pretty easy to grow. The only thing that I've had trouble with is leaf miners can really get into them. So if you're growing them for the greens, that can be an issue. You could use like a BTK on them because it focuses only on worms. So that will also work on the leaf miners. The only trouble with that is the leaf miners are in the leaves, so sometimes it's a little trickier to get rid of them. You can, if you start to see leaf miner damage, which I do think I have a video on that. If I do, I'll link it for you. Then you can go and start squishing those worms out of there or removing the leaves and getting them out of your garden to help slow down the amount of leaf miner that you have in your garden. They can also get a root maggot in them, and I think, I've never tried it, but I believe putting paper down along the rows keeps the root maggots out, because then the flies that lay the eggs, they lay them on the soil surface, so then they're just laying them on the paper. The eggs dry out, they're no longer viable, and they can't get down into the soil, hatch and have the worms into the soil, the maggots into the soil to get into your root crops. So if that's a huge problem for you, or even a minor one, and you want to give that a try, I've, like I said, never tried it myself. I might actually give it a go this year. I haven't had a lot of root maggot issues, but I have had the odd thing, so I might look around for that, for some papers, and see if I can get that focused in here a little bit. But otherwise, you can harvest your beets at any time. Once they start growing, you can take the leaves, and if you want to continue having it grow and develop a larger bulb, then you want to leave several leaves on the plant. Just take some of the outside leaves, then you just want to harvest the root when it gets to the size that you like, or the mature size that it says on the package. But if you like a smaller beet, then pick them smaller. That's fine. They'll be great to grow, and they don't take very long to mature. Usually, most of them are under 2 months. And like I said, cooler weather works better, and they can have a little bit of shade, especially if it's going to be really hot. So that's the beets. Now let's get some rhubarb so I can get some of that rhubarb barbecue sauce made. So when you're harvesting your rhubarb, you can harvest it at any point, but I don't know, can you see the flower right there on that rhubarb? You shouldn't let it do that. So I'm gonna go back. That's the first thing I'm gonna do, is get that flower head off of the rhubarb. You wanna take it off so that it's putting energy into the plant and into the roots and not into making flowers. So I'm gonna run over there and get that stalk off, because I can't reach it from here, so that the plants are staying healthy. So there's the flowers. They're actually quite pretty, and some people grow rhubarb as a decoration in their yard, and that's just fine. But if you're wanting to grow it as a food crop, then removing the flowers will help it to maintain the energy into the plant and the roots in that, so that it doesn't die off and look to go to seed and put new plants out. So this one had split. It's a hollow stem in there, and that's what made that flower stalk. You could eat this still, but these are pretty big, tough stems. I'd rather have some more tender young stems. So you can use a knife and cut them down at the base, but often you can get in and find a young stem and just kind of pull it and twist it and harvest it that way. You want to make sure that each plant is having about, I like to leave at least 4 stalks on each plant, just to leave energy to go collect sunshine and go down to the roots to keep the root nice and strong for the next season, because these are a perennial plant. You get a lot of stalks off one plant and they will spread around. If they start to get too crowded, they'll start growing really spindly and sparse. stems, and then you want to just dig up the crown, kind of cut it in half, find a couple good eyes on it, and then you could share it. You want to do that early in the spring. So do that early in the spring. If you notice one year that your rhubarb is really starting to die off, then get in there the next spring when things are just starting to wake up and you kind of see what's happening there. Dig it up, divide it out. I'm sure you can find someone who wants a good healthy rhubarb plant and share it with a friend or move it to another spot in your yard. This rhubarb, I believe, came from my mom's garden. I know I've gotten some from my aunt in the past, but I think this is all from my mom's garden. It's beautiful rhubarb. So I need about 4 cups, which is a very small amount of this patch here. So I'm just gonna grab a few good stalks. So when I'm harvesting my rhubarb, I'm looking for kind of the in-between size. So like these 2 pieces here, about the size of my finger, thickness, those are about what I'm looking for. I think those are a nice rhubarb for cooking, working with, and flavor and texture. Whereas you see the difference of this really thin one here, not quite grown out enough. You could still use it, but I just find it's a little bit small and spindly for using. But if that's all you have, and you desperately want some rhubarb, you can definitely use that. And then, like I said, these, once they get kind of to this size where it's like almost 2 fingers, I find they tend to get a little bit tough. You kind of want to peel them a little bit, and I just don't like them as much. Again, you can use them for sure. Just short a bit of rhubarb, you just need to fill out a recipe. Grab a couple of these, they'll go a long way. But these are what I prefer, this size here. I am pulling some of the larger ones. Again, you can use them to cook with, and I like to get them pulled out before they go and start flowering. And if possible, you want to avoid yanking up a big chunk like that has some crown attached to it. That's not going to be good for the plant. Especially if the ground is fairly wet, sometimes it's better to go in with a knife and just cut them off real low. Okay, so I think you can tell I've made a pretty big dent in the rhubarb, way more than I need. But with rhubarb, you can take the leaves off, they can go in your compost, or use them as a mulch around your garden beds. And then you can just wrap it up tightly in a damp paper towel and a plastic bag and put it in your crisper, or you can cut it up and freeze it. So this won't go to waste, all these extras. I'll definitely have them for using another day. Now I'm gonna go make that barbecue sauce. I chopped up my rhubarb really fine, and this took about 11 stalks of medium to large stalks of rhubarb. And my oven is preheated to 400 degrees, and I'm just gonna kind of roast this in the oven for about 20-25 minutes while I prep the rest of the ingredients. So I'll get this in the oven, then I'll show you what else we're working with. So let's go through the ingredients real quick. You're going to need some salt and pepper. That's just to taste. And then you're going to need 1 teaspoon of dried chili flakes. So those are from my own garden. You're going to need an 1/8 teaspoon of cloves, 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika, 1.5 tablespoons of chili powder, 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, 1/4 cup of ketchup. This is my own homemade ketchup, 1/2 cup of tightly packed brown sugar, and 4 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar. You'll also need 1.5 cups of water, and then you'll need 4 cloves of garlic peeled and 1/3 cup of diced red onion. So once you get all of those assembled, you're going to put them in your blender, except for the water, and blend it up. So that's the next thing I'm going to be doing. Okay, so that's about 1/3 cup. Okay, so it's been about 20 minutes since I put the rhubarb in the oven, and it was supposed to go till just soft. It's quite soft, like I could just completely mash it, so it's probably a little bit longer than I needed, and now it needs to cool till it's just warm. So it's still pretty hot. I don't know if you can see the steam coming off of it here, but it's still pretty hot. But I thought, well, we wait for it to cool down. I'm just going to grab the recipe here real quick so I can give credit where credit is due. This recipe I found on the saltypot.com. Like I said, I'll try and put a link to that down below for you in the description if you're interested. And it's just called Rhubarb BBQ sauce. But I just thought this sounded really interesting and pretty easy to throw together. Not that barbecue sauce is that difficult. So once this is cooled to warm, I'm going to add it to the blender with the other ingredients. I wanted to just blend that up a bit and get the onion and the garlic blended down a little better. And then we'll just add the rhubarb in, give it another quick blend just to kind of liquefy everything. And then it's going to go into a pot. So I'm actually thinking I'm going to grab a smaller pot. There'll be less than a liter of sauce in the end here. So I think a medium-sized pot will be just fine. It doesn't actually tell you in the instructions. So then you just take what's in the blender and pour it into this pot and just heat it up, and you check the consistency, and that 1.5 cups of water is to add if you want a runnier sauce. If it's too thick, then you just add water until it's the consistency you want, and you cook it for 20 minutes just to get everything well blended together. I have not yet added the salt and the pepper. I think once it's cooked for 10 to 15 minutes, I'll give a little taste test then, and I'll have a better idea of if I need to add any salt and pepper to it and how much. And then again at the end if I need to add a bit more. But that's all that it's going to take now. And then I'm going to barbecue some chicken tonight. I think this will be really good on chicken. It says on any grilled meats, I think chicken, pork, things like that would be really good with this. So I'm excited to try it, and I'll let you know how it tastes in the end. So let's see. Yeah, this isn't really hot anymore, so I think we could pop it in the blender and get the rest of this going. It smells good just having the blender open. And now, of course, you could adjust the amount of chilies to the heat preference that you wanted as well. So I'm just going to blend this up real quick. That should do it. It just says to begin heating the sauce, so it doesn't give you a temperature. So we'll just dump it in there. It's pretty thick right now. I might even just put a splash of water in here just to kind of get it. Get the blender cleaned out a little. There. I got a lot of it out there. So I just put a little bit, like half a cup of water in the blender and just pulsed it for a minute just to work the rest out of the bottom. Now that did make it a little bit runnier, but we are going to cook it for 20 minutes at a simmer, so it's going to reduce. So the reason we roasted the rhubarb was just to get a lot of the moisture out of the rhubarb before doing this, or else you would have to be simmering it probably for an hour or two. So that was that. So it still kind of sticks to the spoon, drips off. So that's actually pretty good, right? Nice right there. We'll see if I need to add more water as it cooks, but I'm just going to bring it up to a simmer and let it cook for 20 minutes. And then it says you can just put it in a jar and keep it in your fridge. So I don't think this would be one that you want to can. I don't think there's enough acidity in here, but still a great thing to keep in your fridge and use for your barbecue. And easy to make, so you can make more whenever you need, as long as it's rhubarb season. And like I said, you could have the rhubarb cut up, freeze it, and I'm sure you could use it that way, just roasting it to get that extra liquid out. And I'm sure it would work just as well. Let's give this a little taste. That is going to be good. And there's like a mild kick at the end. It's not like super spicy, but there is a little bit of heat at the end, but it has that sweetness that kind of goes over top of it. Oh, that's really good. That's going to be nice. So I'll just let that simmer, and then I'll let you know once I try this on some chicken what I think. But right now I think it's really good. I definitely think you should try it, and we'll give you the final verdict at the end. Okay, so here's the chicken with the sauce that I made on it. So I'm going to give it my first taste here, and we'll see together how it is. It cooked nicely on the chicken. Yeah, that's a nice flavor. It's not nearly as strong as I thought it would be. I actually made one piece of chicken plain for some members of my family, but I think they probably could handle this. There's a little bit of a heat after you've kind of finished your bite, but it has a nice sweetness to it, but it's not a super strong flavor when you mix it, when you pair it with the meat. I'd say it's pretty good. So give this recipe a try if you haven't already. Thumbs up this video if you like videos where you learn how to cook the food that you grow in your garden. And we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.